Hello, everyone. Welcome to this next iteration of the CRM AI Academy series. Welcome to our January 2026 topic, which is techniques to ground your AI in CRM. And if there is an important topic, if there's something not to be missed, is this one. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the session and you take a lot of notes. And of course, I'll be in the chat, being able to answer any of your questions as we go into the presentation. As a reminder, I'm Fernando Castro, your Senior Product Manager for CRM AI in ServiceNow. I've been now almost 14 years in this environment and been working with many global accounts in CSM. And of course, this is your safe harbor. There might be some forward-looking statements I might do, so please do not make any purchase decisions based on that. And as housekeeping, as always, we save time for Q&A, so please use the Q&A button instead of the chat so you can submit your questions. Don't worry, this presentation will be recorded and shared with its PDF. And of course, we always appreciate your feedback, so make sure you fill out that short survey so we can keep on doing this for you, all right? And if you missed any of the other CRM AI Academies, please go ahead and click on that link there. I'll put it on the chat too, and it's gonna be in the PDF, and you'll be able to see how you can either pick the right AI for the right task, learn how to tailor your AI sequence or implementation blueprint for that scalable success. We talk also about AI business value, how to measure and transform it. And just in December, we talked about evaluations on both skills and AI agents and agentic workflows. So we have a lot of material there. Today's session is going to be based out of many of these pieces of material. So we assume you've heard it. So in case something is not clear, please go back and take a look at those. And of course, we always have pack schedule where you can join my peer ServiceNow experts at future events. All right. So having said that, let's take a look at what we're going to talk about today. We're going to define what is grounding. How do we define this, right? Why does it matter? What is the framework on how we implement grounding? And within the framework, on each layer, we're gonna see Skill Kit, AI Agent Studio, and even Knowledge Graph at the end, and get some lessons learned from actual previous implementations and how to get started even today. All right? So let's get started. This is our official definition of grounding, right? If you've never heard this word before, you might be like, Fernando, what are you talking about, right? How do you ground AI, or what is this then? Well, first of all, the definition is that we are making sure that AI is understanding your business context, your customer data, your terminology, and your unique processes, so it delivers accurate, relevant results instead of generic or fabricated, hallucinated responses. All right? So that's really, if I was to imagine this, right, it's a fundamental challenge that we're trying to solve with grounding. At the top, you have probabilistic and data systems. These are systems that operate on patterns, statistics, likelihood. LLMs are the obvious one, right? But think also about the other systems in this category, like recommendation engines, predictive models we used to use a lot, search ranking algorithms, generic classifiers. They all share something in common. They make educated cases based on patterns they've learned, outputting rank possibilities, not certainties, right? An example is, think about, I don't know, Netflix recommendations without your viewing history. The system will know what people generally watch, but it doesn't know you. It may suggest a horror film and you might hate horror. Or maybe it will recommend you kids shows and you don't have any children. So it is statistically reasonable, but it's contextually useless. Or consider a phone autocomplete, right? When it predicts the next word based on probability, not on your intent. It knows what people typically say, but not what you mean right now in that conversation. That's when you get those embarrassing autocorrect failures. So LLMs work the same way. Without grounding, they generate what's statistically probable based on their training. And they might know what a case is conceptually, right? They know how customer service conversations typically will go, but they don't know your cases, your customers, your policies, your terminology, or specific processes. So you can take all of these probabilistic systems, and of course, as you can see here, are your data sources, no matter if it's structured or unstructured, streaming information, your applications, your legacy systems, your data products. And we channel all of these through intentional configuration and customization to produce reliable, predictable, trustworthy outcomes. So, here in the green funnel in the middle, this is representing that grounding piece, right? Maybe you're connecting through Workflow Data Fabric external systems. You're using SkillKit or any of our studios like our AI Agent Studio or ServiceNow Studio, and all of these ServiceNow tools that become the foundry for your AI organization. You get raw probabilistic outputs and data scattered throughout all of the systems go in, so we can harness them and contextualize them in our AI control tower. Now, these are responding down because it's representing this transformation, right? Probabilistic inputs become deterministic outcomes. That's the goal. Statistical guesses become grounded responses that are useful, that are giving you value. Pattern-based predictions become context-aware actions. This is where probability meets your reality. Without grounding, you have an AI that operates in the clouds, literally and figuratively. It's impressive technology, but it's producing generic, sometimes even wrong, risky outputs. With grounding, you bring AI back to earth, back to your data, back to your processes where it's actually being used. This is what we're going to show you how to do today. Now, if you remember, I've shown this slide in other presentations, and I keep showing it because, again, these are our design values on AI. And in CRM, this is critical because, again, eventually every AI interaction might be touching your customer experience, especially on context, right? How do we make things relevant? That is not frustrating, that is getting your intention, your sentiment to the reality, right? And the definition of that reality, of course, will vary. So we give you out-of-the-box examples that are ready for you to ground. We talked about this before, where our expectation is for you to take and clone either an AI agent, agentic workflow, or skill and make it yours. So when your AI understands your world, it's no more, you won't have any more of this generic knowledge, right? Again, it's evolving into where you have a specific context. It could be your business context, right? The industry, the company policies, the service level agreements, the compliance requirements. Again, we don't know what those are in your specific instance, so you have to ground it so it understands this. It could be your data model. For example, CRM foundation tables such as customer data foundation, your accounts, your contacts, your consumers, your households, the relationships between those, and products or products install-based items. Your terminology, the product names, the service categories, the internal acronyms, the customer tiers maybe. Your processes, so how a case flows, your case types, your escalation paths, your resolution procedures and approval chains. Your policies and constraints, what actions are permitted and what requires a human approval and what information is sensitive. And lastly, of course, the goal, right? Which is the AI responses and actions becoming accurate, relevant, and trustworthy. So I keep using the system because they reflect how your organization actually operates. So you get better ROI, you get your compliance checks, you get your security, as always, in full trusted system. And of course, we keep on growing across all the different phases, as you can see here, from proof of value to implementation to using it and iterating and scaling it to other departments with this grounding foundation. And of course, we provide you with the key tools that help you ground all of this technology. So by now you have learned how to pick the AI for the right task, right? And how to get value. And like I said, both generative and agentic AI require grounding, but the techniques differ. So generative AI creates content, remember, but agentic AI takes action. An ungrounded generative skill produces an accurate summary, and an ungrounded agent might be updating the wrong record or escalating incorrectly. So both levels of stakes differ. At the left, you can find now Assist Skill Kit for generative AI, right? It uses inputs, instructions, and tools, so you can get all of those summaries, recommendations, right? And the grounding, again, is all about feeding the right data, fine-tuning those tools, and writing those clear instructions. On AI Agent Studio, the value, of course, is the now not only instructions, but also workflow logic, tools, for example, knowledge graph, orchestration to complete multi-step tasks, right? It's all about valid actions, relationship context, process compliance. And so These two tools are the ones we're going to be looking at today and how we use them as your grounding tools. These are your little helpers. And we cannot talk about grounding without, of course, thinking about your entire ecosystem. And that's how we talk about a workflow data fabric, right? A critical product that, in contrast with other data fabric or integration systems, those are designed to move data. This one is designed with a bias to action to help our customers execute the billions of transactions every single month happen on our platform, right? Not only from any source, as you can see here, but it's also about contextualizing and controlling the data directly in the flow of work. So that's the reason it's natively as part of the platform, right? It's about turning that chatbot into a context-aware coworker, one that understands your business tools and your real-time enterprise-wide outcomes that you're trying to, of course, map out. And we have many ways that Workflow Data Fabric allows you to bring data, right? You can bring through API-based systems and our integration hub spokes that we have many of those out of the box in the store. We have external content connectors when you are integrating external text-based content into AI search. So you want to search across other systems and you get obviously smarter results with much more context. Stream Connect, which is of course when you want to look at real-time high volume event and data streaming. And when you have zero copy connectors, you're securely accessing and sharing enterprise data without any duplication, right? It's about reducing risks, access control. And of course, RPA Hub, we have this as a UI-based automation of repetitive tasks where the interface doesn't really change when you have integration of legacy systems using robots. And of course, MCP, where you're using tools and resources exposed by an MCP connection directly for the consumption of our AI agents. And not pictured here, but again, future thinking very close to release is our web agents, right? Or desktop agents, where we'll be able to, again, connect to these other third-party systems. And the difference with RPA is that the interface might change and there's reasoning in between. So you will be able to pivot as needed on those other interfaces and bring everything back. Of course, when you do not have APIs. So what happens when you do not ground versus when you ground, right? And this is in many layers. We see hallucinations increasing, right? Without accurate context, the model fills gaps with plausible sounding but incorrect information. A case summary might be referencing a product that the customer does not own, or a solution recommendation might be citing a policy that does not exist. Wrong actions and then wrong records, right? An ungrounded agent might just update a field in the wrong case or escalate to a team that does not support the product or send a communication with incorrect customer details. Generic responses, of course, will frustrate customers because they will receive boiler answers that ignore their history, what we already know about them. Agents in our contact centers might be looking at recommendations that are not actually fitting their situation, and trust then erodes. When you get generic responses, that also, of course, does a little bit of adoption stall. Teams try the AI, see poor results, and they stop using it. The investment fails to deliver value. Adoption also brings the problem of compliance and data risk, right? Because then you might not have the proper constraints that can violate your policies, expose sensitive data, or create audit issues if you do not have them with the correct roles or principles behind them. So grounding, as you can see, is not optional, right? It is the difference between AI that helps and AI that might be causing problems. Now, when you can see here on the right, when we have AI properly grounded in your CRM, it is not only having great accuracy, but those systems, remember, they reflect on what actually happened, they learn, and they keep on referencing real products, real places, real customer contexts. Same with the trust of AI, right? Your humans are trusting that, your live agents, when the AI consistently gets it right. And so we start relying on it. Your customers, of course, will notice this difference because they'll see their history, their tier, their specific situation feels personalized. And of course, automation becomes visible. You can confidently expand AI for more workflows and, of course, other use cases because that is a strong foundation. Grounding quality determines how far you can go. And of course, the time to value accelerates because This is now working correctly from the start. Less rework, fewer iterations, faster rollout. And this is important because you want to, of course, have that trust of your many stakeholders. And for that, now going into more of a tactical perspective, we created a grounding framework, right? Like I said, many things happen, and the only way to bring them back to a useful solution that is customized for you is by following this. Is it a one-hit wonder? No, it's not, right? Like we talked in other CRM AI academies, there's levels of grounding per skill and AI agent, right? And you, of course, should prioritize the foundation and keep fine-tuning it. Now, all these little trophies is, of course, each go live, each phase, right, that you have. And most people are like, well, go live, we're done, right? But no, it's just the start. So for a continuous successful setup of go lives, we have to keep on fine-tuning and grounding. As you can see, level 1 is, does the AI is using accurate information and avoid hallucinations, right? We're thinking about correct input selected, RAG retrieving the relevant context, right, on search, constraints preventing fabrication, right? If you don't know, say so. Or outputs grounded in actual data, not generated assumptions. If this fails, nothing else matters, right? That's the main thing. This is the first step of that. Now, for level 2, when you are about to go live with your first skill, right, or your first AI agent, make sure that it is relevant, right? Does the AI understand that specific situation? You have your customer data grounded, again, account, tier, history, entitlements, contracts. The case context is included, right? State, priority, related records, timelines, knowledge graph, relationships are understood if you have this configured. Right, tools configured to fetch what matters, meaning an accurate generic response beats an inaccurate personalized one. Now, on the next stage of grounding, we're looking at compliance, right? How can we make sure your process is actually following all these workflows and policies from an AI perspective? So actions map to your procedures, escalation paths are respected, security controls and data access are in place, and human in the loop is where required. AI must work within your operational boundaries. That was gate number 3. Now for gate number 4, it's about giving it that level of edge cases, handling exceptionally graceful, right? All these scenarios that are pretty buried, and you're looking at the completeness and recall case scores to evaluate and make sure that now you're getting to those edge cases. And when you're at a fly stage, you're thinking more about the brand voice, the terminology, right? Your language, your tone, that polished layer at the end where you're thinking about acceptance rates around the score and qualitative reviews such as sentiment and feedback. And finally, you're fully autonomy, right? You have AI taking actions with reduced human oversight. We're just now actually going all the way across conversion rates, click-through rates, average handle time, continuous acceptance rates, and CSAT, again, after longer periods of time. So to clarify, each of these fine-tuning gates happen at all different moments of your implementation, but that doesn't preclude you to go live. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You can crawl and go live with, again, faithfulness and correctness, and then adjust to go to walk and think about completeness and edge cases. A big mistake I see many customers do is they want to go all the way to brand voice terminology and autonomy on crawl. And then that delays your go live forever, where you could have already gotten some progress, some realizations that you can only get after you go live on grounding it, after doing iterations. We talked about this in other sessions. You must push to really bring all of this AI technology into a real controlled environment. Maybe it's, a group of live agents. Maybe it's your ambassadors. And that's okay. You can crawl with them and then walk with a bigger group and then run with your customers and fly with, your entire customer base, right? But you have to start at some point because otherwise you're delaying the actual data coming in from usage that you will only get on, again, online and offline evaluations like we spoke in December. Now, thinking about not anymore those levels, but now categories of grounding, we have four. We start with the data, right? So, what data can the AI retrieve? Inputs, maybe an output from another tool, like I was saying earlier, maybe RAG retrieval, maybe workflow data fabric. Then you get your instruction grounding, which is how the AI is getting its prompts, its descriptions, the agent specialty, as we call it, constraints, what it shouldn't do, right? You get your action grounding, which is what actions can it actually take, right? We're talking about now tools for action, different than the tools to get an output. Right now, we're actually actioning with flows, record operations, security controls, scripts, right? And finally, relationship grounding, which is what are the connections can the AI see? What is the semantic indexing or layering you have, such as knowledge graph, to look at entities relationship, maybe your data models, right? Your orchestration happening across agentic workflows and systems. So having these four is what actually is going to allow us to ground everything. Think about it as a check mark, right? Have I done enough data grounding, enough instructions, enough actions, or the right actions? And does it have enough relationships grounding? Now, please note I'm going to be doing mini demos for each of these categories so you can see it on the platform. So let's start with the foundation. As you can see, is data. So with data, we're asking, what does the AI have access to? In Skill Kit, we have the following, right? Inputs, which is fields from records. Maybe you're doing some truncation on them. You're doing a retriever, right, of your hybrid semantic or keyword options on RAG. Subflows, flow actions, scripts, skills, web searches, right, with different providers. Maybe you're even leveraging predictive intelligence and document intelligence to use all of these within the tool editor. Let me show it to you quickly. All right, so for those that are unfamiliar, this is Now Assist Skill Kit, and I went here into ServiceNow Skills, and I just filtered this for CSM, and then I'm gonna open chat recommendation as a sample skill. Again, this is the out-of-the-box one. That means that everything is read-only, of course, so we need to clone it first. But before cloning it, again, let's talk about just data retrievers, right? The things that are actually being brought into this skill, so we understand how it was designed, right? So you get the context of the current chat, maybe the interaction number, right? You can make sure that something is mandatory as its input, or that there's truncation happening in case you want to trim the input, right? If you have a token limit. Again, the interaction number, also we made this one mandatory. And then the other thing you will notice is we have certain conditions over here, right? Like recommendation should be true. This is a ServiceNow prompt. And so all these different things I was telling you before, the inputs are, of course, here. You could always add more over here. But again, you cannot do it right now because this is out of the box. So you have to clone it first. But if we're cloning it, let me show you the tools, right? So this is what we have out of the box. We have a skill being used with a decision on two different types of search retrievers. So if you click on the actual button here, you'll be able to see what capability is being used to summarize the chat. So that's the first thing it's doing. It's doing chat summarization. You can click on that and it will actually bring you to the actual chat summarization skill, which is the first step of what it's doing. And then, you can do continue and seeing, what are the inputs that are happening for that summarization before it provides a recommendation, and how it's going to display the outputs and any options you might want to have at that. Now, in terms of these two retrievals, right, you can just click on them and you'll see one is around the task, right? So how can we get results from multiple contexts, right? Keyword, semantic, hybrid. What are those tasks, right? So we're looking at, limit of 10 documents that will be returned. What are the search sources we're looking at? Any specific fields. And once again, outputs that are going to educate the grounding of these specific skill. Okay. And you can also do truncating here. Same with search in this case, right? If you were searching with this specific tool, then you can just, again, look at its inputs and see all the different pieces of knowledge articles within the knowledge base, and you can add your own. Again, these are just out of the box, but maybe you created another template or another knowledge source, right? So you can add it here. You can change it from hybrid to semantic to keywords. So much to do here, right? You can change its outputs and maybe add more, truncate them again here. And then this is where the actual prompt comes in, which is what you just saw on this previous screen, right? So this is how everything comes together. You can run it to test it. You can just try it like that. And again, in order to add more notes or more decisions, you can also do so, again, by cloning the skill. So I'm just going to call it clone of chat recommendation for CRM AI Academy. And then I'm just going to say this is for learning. You can change its providers as needed, right? You have independence of this. It no longer needs to be only Now LLM. And once you clone it, you're going to notice a couple of things, right? The first one is that, again, you get this success message and you get those inputs and outputs, right, of you wanted to give either responses or errors, right? And you can modify that. And also when you go to tools, you will be able to see that now you can actually click on add node or add decisions, right? And then you can make any of these. Let's say you do add node, and like I was saying, it could be parallel or it could be just under it. And you get flow actions, you get retrievers like I just showed you, right? We just saw. Scripts, other skills, like you saw I was doing with chat summarization, subflows that you might have created, web searches, predictive intelligence, document intelligence, right? You do web search, you can just click on this, name it whatever you wanted for it to understand this, right? And no search, there you go, no spaces, sorry. We're gonna make it a web search. So this is telling us what the wrapper is, and then, what's going to be the provider. So, I'm just going to say it's going to be Gemini. And then you're going to make sure that you have this specific query and so on, right? So that is how you start grounding a skill through a tool's perspective. I was just telling you earlier. That's what I was referring to. Now, on going back to AI Agent Studio, let me just bring it up. So we talk about other types of grounding for data, right? So how are you exposing other piece of data? Well, when you clone an agentic workflow through AI Agent Studio, then you can, and you should also clone its AI agents. And when you're cloning an AI agent, you can look at adding any of these tools, right? File uploads, RAG search, knowledge graph, record operations, web searches, scripts, and flows. Again, you can use scripts and flows to also action on data, but in here it's within the context of just receiving the data, right? So let me show you that real quick. So if we go to AI Agent Studio and I go into Create and Manage, and under the AI Agents tab, let's clone this one that is part of triage cases. You can just click here to duplicate, or you can also do it within the actual AI agent itself, because again, you cannot really change those pieces. And again, under tools and information, when you click on a tool, you'll see some of those that I just referred to, right? So for example, uploading a file or doing a record operation, so you can bring data, doing a web search, right? Even retrieving data from a script or doing a search retrieval. Here you can see an example of an out-of-the-box search retrieval. But again, this is just an example. Maybe you have another search profile, right? And you want to choose something different that you have indexed. Maybe you want to look at something more than the article body, or, hybrid is not working as good as semantic. Or maybe you want it to be supervised. So again, many of these are just examples, right, that we're providing you. You get this output transformation format, right, that basically allows you to have a none for raw JSON, right? Or if you have, you can also do verbose, or, generate messages with generative AI for the actual name or the in progress message or the completion message if it was, especially if it's supervised, because you need, to communicate this to the user somehow. Of course, we have our beautiful knowledge graph here. Again, as an example, we're looking at the CSM knowledge graph that we have. And again, this is just doing that query to get that specific context, right, that you have from those relationships. Now, again, you have and you must add instructions to any of these. So again, it has that specific guidance that you want to give it, right? And you can add many of these, right? You don't have to stay at that. You can delete that, as you can see here. You can again add a web search like we did on the other one. Again, you can change the configurator here for the provider. Again, make it call it something else. So there's many other ways that you can bring and tailor this so you can ground it for your specific use case. All right. So going back, we're done with data, right? At this point, we are just starting on the right path. Now, the next thing that we talked about is instruction. So how do you provide correct instructions? You're going to see that many of these, you are talking about role prompting, right? You are an expert at this. These are the field variables that we need, right? Explicit constraints, do not do this, do that, right? If you don't know, say so. And then how you're going to really show that output. Any usage conditions. So maybe you want different prompts for different scenarios. I'll show you that in a second. Temperature setting, and then any pre or post processors, right? So if you want to mask data, expand acronyms, all of these are scripts that run before the prompt leaves your instance or after the response returns in a post-processing piece, right? And so, for example, unmasking the data in the response or formatting the output for a specific downstream system, validating this structure, right? Maybe. So we have all of these available out of the box. Let me show you this in the instance. So going back to Skill Kit, you can go here to ServiceNow Skills, and I'm gonna look for a duplicate I did before, a clone, for the case type of complaint case summarization. And you're gonna notice that again, the prompt has a role-based prompt, right? You're optionally given these, and these are the wildcards, as you can see here. And you're gonna see in a second how I cloned these, and I went through the entire process. But what I do want to show you here is how you have, sections of issue, key actions taken, resolution, right? And again, you can see the inputs that I was given. I can just click on that and see if I want to add any other additional inputs from that table, right? Over here, any other conditions, right? And this condition of state is new, you can also confirm it over here, right? You can see that a condition, well, this one is for result, but if I click on the new one, it's actually this one, right? You can see right here what it is. And, bring any other things that I need, such as, again, selecting the provider, token limits, and like I was saying, any sort of conditions like I just told you about. And of course, these are the pre and post processing piece that you can do as needed. So that's another piece, right, that I did from before on this specific prompt. Right now, this one, right, you can see how we have all of these different ones pair their different states and how they change a little bit on the actual instructions, right? You can see how some of them have more fields than others. I usually recommend, using the one that says case summarization, because that's the one that we, as a CSM, we took from platform, which is the record summarization. Then again, we grounded a little bit for the CSM product. Now it's your turn to ground it now for your specific instance. Okay. And going back on AI Agent Studio, what you also notice is that you have role prompting too. You also have chain of thoughts prompting, agent specialty descriptions, tool orchestration guidance that I was just showing you before, right? Where you can have actual inputs on the instructions within each tool for AI agents, error, exit, and null handling. And we always recommend to use scaffolding whenever possible. I'll show you that in a second. It's basically saying, well, based on these other things that you did, do this, right? Don't come up with anything random over there. And then, of course, think about all those possible conflicts that could happen, right? That's the reason I was telling you about iterations. Maybe, you're thinking about unrelated instructions or conflicted guidance, right? Each instruction should have a clear, single purposeful guideline. And then the other piece is when we have scaffolding, right, is that we are breaking those complex tasks into discrete steps, right? You guide the agent through a logical sequence rather than expecting it to figure out the order of things. So the perfect example for me is triage cases. Let me show it to you. So here we are in AI Agent Studio. I did a clone of triage cases. And if I open this up, you're going to notice what we have out of the box and that I can start playing with, of course, because now it's cloned. So you can see that at an agentic workflow level, it just says very, very clearly and explicitly that we have different paths depending on intent and sentiment. And the core of this is doing context validation. And then from there, we decide if we want to do intent and sentiment. And then if it's negative, the case needs to be created. But if it's positive and neutral, we will try to handle it as informational, transactional, or complex issue intents. Those are the three intents we're telling it, being very grounded, very specific. And then, it will generate an email response after handling the sentiment of the record. You can see here the list of steps. And it just says, just give it to the triage case planner. That's it. Not decompose it any further. That's all we're going to do. So we go here and let's look at the context validator, for example. As soon as you open this one, which is one of the most complex ones, right, that start at the very beginning, you can know that, again, this is read-only because I have to clone it. But you can see how this description, right, is very specific. We're validating the record, we're analyzing the sentiment and getting the list of intents. And we should invoke this when the record content is to be validated. Then you go down here and you can see that it's gathering the source record details, validating them, and determine the sentiment, handling it, right? All this natural language. And here's that chain of thoughts. That's that scaffolding that we were talking about. First, do this, gather the source record. Second, verify the record is valid. Third, make sure that the sentiment of this record is sourced. Again, do this if it's negative. Do this if it's positive or neutral. And here's your exit criteria. Do not combine steps. Do not ask for confirmation. Do not communicate those findings to the user unless they ask you to. And always process Boolean values, right? Treat it as an indication that the condition is met or the answer is yes. So again, you're almost like a new hire explaining what they got to do. And like I said, even on tools and informations, you can actually, so for the actual script where we're extracting the intents, we have a description, right? And it's very specific. And in each of these different input names, we have our own descriptions, right? And this is where the actual intent is. Same with get record details, right? We're gathering all the details of a given record based on the record table and the record's ID or number. And guess what? So it doesn't have to guess that. We define these inputs when you click on add input over here. And then these two descriptions again go to the LLM as input of grounding. All right. And of course, the script is down below. All right. So that is all we got to talk about in terms of instructions. We could, of course, have a whole session just talking about prompting, right? And instructions. Of course, we don't have the time for that today. But I will go on and talk now about intent. So execution, what is that action grounding, right? So on Analysis Skill Kit, the key difference in here is that, remember, they action just because you have a human in the loop. You will always have a human in the loop on Skill Kit or in generative AI. So what you really do here in terms of action is how do you expose this to a human, right? It could be through the panel, UI actions, UI builder, virtual agent, flow actions, or like we do in configuration where you can define the roles that of people that need to have access for this. So again, all of that, you can look at it in deployment and skill settings is the last, of course, tab. Here's where you can define where you wanted it to be. Again, UI action, flow action, context menu. And you could always define any sort of security controls if you wanted to have, like we were talking about before, user access through ACLs, role restrictions, and any other general information you want to have from a processing perspective, right? All of that, again, is more on when it's actually producing that action. Now, on AI agents, it's a little bit different because Those actions are what you're actually, I was just showing you before with record operations, catalog items, flows, or those scripts where they're actually actioning on something. Or again, this AI agent can use generative AI skills and even conversational topics from virtual agents in which you are now actually, again, doing something, moving one thing to the other, right? Now, the main thing about it is that you should map every tool to a purpose, right? Every tool on AI Agent Studio has a clear function. So if you're going to do a record operation, you should target specific tables. The script should be performing defined logics, right? It's not generic do anything tools. And of course, you should always think about the principle of least privilege, right? Agents should only access and modify what they need. And an agent resolving password resets should not have access to billing records, for example, or a case type that it shouldn't be touching, right? Validating tool outputs, which is, of course, a tool can fail, return unexpected results, but when you build error handling into your agentic workflow, then you get these tools acting how you wanted it to be. What is the message that it's going to give you, right? What happens when a RAG research has returned nothing? And or a flow, let's say, times out. And of course, impersonation settings matter. Agentic workflows can also execute as login users in the analysis panel, and any operations performed within the tool are also executed as that a logged in user then, right? So all of this is defined on AI Agent Studio. So now let's go back to AI Agent Studio. And so again, here you can see those actions being done. If you click on define user access, you can see again who has access to this in terms of roles, of actual data. And again, because I haven't cloned this, I cannot change it, but I could always change it from dynamic users to a dedicated user that you might have built into your instance or platform, right? And again, this is how you ground it. You got to change to your specific approved roles. Again, any triggers that you might want to have a specific for an AI agent, that's usually not the case, right? Usually you can do a created, updated, or even scheduled by time or by emails. But again, usually this is at a agentic workflow level. And then again, when it's thinking or doing its channels and status, you can again have in progress messages, completion messages, and of course, make sure that you can use even Gen AI to generate these within, again, your AI agent. So again, these are just random ones that he just created. But once again, all of this is used for you to complete the life cycle of intention, right? Of what is it actually going to do? And finally, on the relationship grounding is, of course, knowledge graph, where it's doing this traversing of connections, finding all the cases, for example, for a specific account, all the products that the customer owns, similar cases from customers in the same industry, semantic relationships. So beyond foreign keys, knowledge graph, you will understand that this customer service agreement includes this specific premium support within a 4-hour SLA. Contextual retrieval, maybe when an agent needs to determine next steps, knowledge graph will provide you the full picture. Tier, open cases, recent transactions, portfolio. Any guardrails, right, like escalating to a specific team that might not support a specific product. And of course, you should map your specific CDF or service model foundation as needed, right? What you have actually done on those. Very important is that this also uses semantic indexing. So make sure your indexed sources and fields are also configured in AI search because they are working together, or even external content connectors if you're looking at external sources. Speaking of external sources, just released now on past Q4 is enterprise graph, right? Where you can quickly find meaningful answers across all enterprise data. It's basically allowing you to have natural language tests so you can look at all the instance tables and relationships and test if that's actually working, right? On AI search, virtual agent, the panel, AI agents. Are they using the right thing? Are they understanding that context? And it is fast mode that you get to basically search on those tables and those relationships. And of course, you can execute any natural language queries against other external Workflow Data Fabric zero copy tables, and even do aggregated functions like sum, average, count, right, in those queries. So let me show you knowledge graph. So I'm just gonna click here and just write knowledge graph. And first you can go to the designer, like I said. You can just look at the one we have out of the box for CSM case graph and modify it as needed. So this is what we have out of the box, right? And you can see what case is right at the center. Again, you have a description that it helps your LLMs to understand what you're doing. And of course, you can put synonyms to them in case you wanted to call the table something differently. And this is the tables that it's looking at, right? The active table, the closed notes, right? Only those with a number, an open, and priority. So you can test any of those fields. And then you can, of course, which is the whole thing about it, is build those related nodes. Now, let's say that, you have, of course, product model, contract group, and you want to add a new one, right? You want to add a node. So you can click on this and you can say, you know what? I want to add sold product because I'm actually using, again, sold product. Oops, sorry for that. Sold product. Right, and let's say that you have configured this, so you click on add. Then now that you have selected sold product, you got to make sure that it has an edge mapped to it, right? So you can see it here, that how it's been added. And what specific fields you wanted it to show and how are you going to call it, right? So for that, you can just click on sold product, right? And then you can see the node details, the columns that can be queried. So of course we want to say account, right? Maybe the contact, maybe a consumer, maybe a product name, right? That might be the product model table. Maybe you can even say, hey, what are the parent sold products for this specific piece of equipment, right? And of course the name, we want to have that. And you can even bring any other related nodes as you saw before, such as locations, accounts. We're going to add account because we also want that relationship to happen. So now you can see how it went from here to here. And then, let's say that you wanted to add, even a contact. So you can always bring that here. So you can say, hey, what is this specific product of this specific contact, right? So I'm just going to save this. And then we can test the schema right here. So you can just click on this and I'm gonna test it here with natural language. What is a sold product for Boxio Canada, which is one of my accounts. And I'm gonna run that query. And if this is working correctly, you can see here the SysID. You can see that it has a contact, an account, and it's called a book to learn how to ground your AI in ServiceNow. So, and it even has a product related to it. So you can go here and again see that information from an account record and verify it, right? You have a sold product called a book to learn how to ground your AI in ServiceNow, and see that it has Amy, and you have your account, and you have even a product model selected for it, right? So it is able to retrieve all that information correctly. And if you do a check mark here on show column properties in response and we leave it running, it will actually show us all the different tables that you did edge connections before that I show you for this specific sold product, right? So you can see all the different relationships that it has completed and the details of it, including the actual information in the column. All right, and now the next thing that I don't know if you noticed, but when we were on the homepage, here's your enterprise graph. And this is, again, where you can look at everything you have on Explore and Testing and contribute across ServiceNow and third-party tables. So again, you could just look for a specific table here, and then it will tell you specifically what's under it by just, again, putting natural language as needed. So if you want to, I'm just going to do the sys user group, it's just going to look at what that looks like and retrieve all the information you have across systems for that specific table, right? So you see it that the group has users and it has a cost center, and that's how they're related out of the box, right? So very, very nice way of looking at what you have from a graphing perspective and semantic indexing perspective, okay? So all in all, if we were to summarize, right, in SkillKit, that grounding is happening primarily through inputs, instructions, and tools, right? At the prompt level, you saw me there. In AI Agent Studio, that grounding was happening through the workflow description, maybe the agent specialty, and the tools you assign to each of them as needed. So you have different steps in all of them. In generative AI, you choose a provider, you edit the prompt, you add tools, you set those usage conditions. Optionally, you can set token limits. You can do, truncating, pre or post-processing, optimizing on evaluations, deployment settings, right on where you wanted it to show. Whether it's in agentic workflows, it's all about the key requirements, connecting those AI agents, defining those controls, adding triggers, selecting those channels, those statuses, what processing messages you wanted to show. And then with a specific AI agent, it's more around their specialty. Again, their tools and information you might want to use. Again, you can see some of these have a star next to them because you can use generative AI in them, right, to help you build there, or again, select a skill and add it as a tool for an AI agent to use. Define security controls, any sort of triggers, channels, and statuses, right? So a bunch of information you can do from a grounding perspective on those 4 layers we talked about. Now, if you want to see all these steps end to end, and you're curious to see it all come together, and you want to see a skill being grounded, customized, and tailored for these specific process that we just looked at of grounding, there's a demo of a grounded skill that we have in YouTube. This is a quick hyperlink you could do, snc.do/CSM grounding. And if you click on that, or I'll just put it on the chat, but when you have the PDF, you can click on that and it will take you there. And it's like a 20-minute video that takes you step by step of everything that you could do, from taking, with the example of case summarization, and then grounding it on complaint case summarization out of the box. So you can get new inputs and new outputs, therefore, on that specific grounded skill. So full-on customization for you to see step by step and all the way to testing. Because obviously today we don't have time to go through all of that. But at least you saw the highlights, you saw what the framework and process is, and the 4 main, again, checklist items: data, instructions, actions, and relationships. All right, so some lessons learned from the field, from actual deployments that we have done. I will start with the do's. Let's start positive, right? So start small with one workflow. Pick a high volume, well-defined workflow for your first grounded AI implementation. It could be something as simple as case summarization or knowledge generation, but prove the value before expanding the scope. Same thing with iterating with real sample data. Use production-like data in testing. Synthetic data misses edge cases, so DataKit can help you really ground that so it's a representative evaluation data set. We talked about this during last session. And remember that testing also consumes assess. Now, tune inputs and outputs continuously is ever-going work. Ground this is not set and forget. As your data changes, processes evolve, edge cases surface. And then you need to revisit configuration, promptings, and tools. Schedule periodic reviews, right? SkillKit maintains prompt versions for easy comparison. Same with AI Agent Studio. Now you have versioning on prompting there too. You should validate actions through logs. For agentic workflows, review each action during testing. It shows all the tool inputs, outputs, and resonant traces, right? You can look at trust, but also verification. And measure what matters, right? As covered in the November session, analytics and AI Control Tower really track skill usage, quality, and value. Connect grounding quality to business outcomes so you get your deflection rates, handle times, customer satisfaction tracked. And finally, you should be grounding your quality so you can determine your overall success. The organizations that invest in grounding see better adoption, fewer escalations, and higher user satisfaction. Skipping grounding will create technical debt and will start compounding. Now, in terms of pitfalls, right, on the don'ts, I will talk about, of course, grounding cannot fix bad data. If your knowledge base, if your knowledge graph is outdated, is disconnected, your case fields are inconsistently populated, or your customer records have gaps, no amount of prompting engineering helps. AI amplifies data quality issues always. Solution is treat data readiness as a prerequisite. We have a data readiness checklist before enabling skills. I'll link to that in a second. The second pitfall I would say is dumping everything into the prompt. Not every input should be intentional and not about everything. Because you're overloading the context window with irrelevant data, then it dilutes the signal. The model struggles to find what matters, right? So be selective. Ask, does the model need this field to complete the task truly? And if not, remove it. Third, having all these fly requirements, like I was saying earlier, around branding and toning and fine-tuning when we're not even crawling, right? So go live in phases, trust the process, don't waterfall, don't wait 6 months to go live with a skill, right? Start at least with pilot teams playing with this. Confusing grounding with fine-tuning. That means that some customers think that it is necessary to train a custom model, right? But for most CRM use cases, grounding through RAG inputs instructions achieve customization goals without model training. So again, focus on the fine-tuning within ServiceNow, because at a model perspective, that's rarely necessary, and it really introduces complexity that you might not want to bring your own model perspective. The next one is not having enough governance over prompting and descriptions. Version control, being able to look at what people are doing, reviewing, testing on this, iterating. When ungoverned prompt changes happen, these can break skills or introduce compliance issues. Treat prompt changes like code changes, right? Version control, review, test before production. And finally, of course, like we talked last month, you cannot know if grounding is working without measurement. Faithfulness and correctness metrics in Nowsys Skill Kit directly measure those grounding effectiveness. Build your data sets on Data Kit. It should be part of your evaluation process. Test with representative data, with golden sets of data, and then monitor ongoing quality as needed. You will only know after you actually test, especially with different pieces of opinions. So start today, build your grounding plan, right? And leverage our key resources. All of these are clickable. I'm going to put them on the chat. But also, again, when we distribute this PDF, you'll be able to click on any of these. We have a data readiness checklist that you can download from the business practice library. We have Nowsys Readiness app that allows you for free, even if you're not a Pro or Enterprise Plus customer, you can run these and see how ready you are. There's another webinar for AI Academy around how workflows, custom skills, and AI agents interact with each other. That's a very interesting one. And of course, the first CRM AI Academy session, I'm picking the right AI for the right task. We also, when you have your use case identified, start grounding it, look at our implementation guides, our workshop presentation, tailoring your AI sequence, right? Your roadmap, your implementation blueprint, get your preparation guide review for a skill kit. We have a couple of documents around getting started initiating with AI agents and delivering proven AI business value. That's a second, I believe, or the November version of the CRM AI Academy series. We have a prompt engineering guide, right? Our implementation guide for skill kit. Also, plan, execute on AI agents documents that you can find. And of course, look at our December session and then go live. Get your value, your scaling guide, right? For skill kit, it's right there for you to consume. And then we have, of course, our implementation guides in our Create or Business Practice Library now for you to leverage. This is, again, all part of our implementation path library that we recommend you to use, now updated with the AI Agents Delivery Accreditation, the admin persona, and of course our CRM AI webinars. All of this is clickable. Look at it. Let me know if you have any questions. And as always, thank you for joining us today. Again, we are delightful to have you. We appreciate your feedback. So hopefully we can continue talking about this and coming up with new examples, new requirements. And during February, we're going to keep on talking about use cases and how we design all of these in a best practice framework. So once again, thank you so much for joining us.